Behind the Badge, Illinois, giving you the inside scoop on public safety and those who protect and serve. Hear real stories directly from law enforcement experts and get a chance to ask questions about issues you've always wanted to know more about. You have the right to remain informed. This is Behind the Badge, Illinois.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Behind the Badge, Illinois. I'm David Hochberg, your host. On with us today, we have a bunch of returning experts. Retired Colonel Mimi McGrill. We've got Chief Brueggemann down in O'Fallon. We've got Chief David Byrd up in DeKalb and Chief Lou Jogman in Highland Park. We also want to introduce and welcome Chief, I want to get this right, Chief Vernon Foley down in Chatham, Illinois. Chief, as we were talking prior to the show, I just thought Chatham was on the south side of Chicago. I had no idea that we had a Chatham, Illinois, in the great state of Illinois. We want to quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your force down there before we talk about the topic and get rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us on today. So Chatham is located just a little bit south of Springfield. We're basically a suburb of Springfield, the capital. The town has grown tremendously over the years. We're about 14,500 people as we currently sit population-wise. And like I did say, we are a suburb of Springfield. We're a department of 16. We're a smaller department, but just like any other department, we get things done.
It's
right,
quantity. I was going to say it's
Luke.
quantity, it's quality, not quantity, Chief. 16 strong.
14,000 people. I mean, we've got 33,000 up here in Northbrook where I live. So you're right on our heels catching up to us. So let's get right into it. We were talking prior to, you've got an officer down there that you want to give some recognition to. We're going to call it the Officer Spotlight. And we were talking about all the day-to-day things that the public has no idea about what officers do on a daily basis. All right, Lou, you want to start it off, and then we'll throw it over to retired Colonel Mimi McGrill of the Great Illinois State Police.
Yeah, absolutely. So unquestionably, and we've known this, we know this in law enforcement, our officers and our staff, they do great work every day. They truly, truly do, all across the country, certainly here in Illinois. And, I think just human nature is we don't often focus on the positive. We just don't. And so I think it's important. I think we all agree here around the table. It's really important that our officers know, that we recognize the work that they're doing and make sacrifices they're making. And I think our community, more importantly, needs to know that too. They need to know that out of maybe, I remember that we had this conversation, out of something like 1.2 million contacts last year in the state of Illinois for law enforcement. We had a handful of incidents that didn't go well. We're talking a very, very small number. So the vast majority of the work that the officers are doing is really good work. Lives are being saved, lives are being changed. And we here at Behind the Badge in Illinois, we really want people to know that. And so today's our first opportunity to recognize the really courageous work of an officer in Chatham. And I'll just share before I turn it over and go around the horn. Officers are generally uncomfortable with this stuff. They didn't get into this line of work for recognition per se. It definitely helps and it's nice and they should hear it. But if they wanted recognition, they would have gotten into the movies or into making TV shows. That's just not what they do. But I definitely feel, as we all do, it's important that they hear it.
All right, we're going to throw it down. I know I said I was going to throw it to Mimi, but I'll tell you, let's just throw it back down to Chatham with Chief Foley and talk about, set up the situation, and then we'll introduce your officer if the officer is available. Then we'll go around the horn and talk about different types of, heroic things that your officers have done that the public should know about that's not getting the right type of recognition. So your dance floor, Chief Foley.
Well, I appreciate it. This incident occurred. It was a house fire that came in on December 18th of this past year into a residence on South Main Street. At the time, we do have a full-time fire department, but we also, obviously, when there's a house fire or similar type of incident or large incident, our officers respond to those incidents as well. So Officer Brachear responded down to the residence and saw that the residence was on fire. Saw a young individual a kid out in front of the residence, grabbed the kid from the residence, and then took him across the street. Went back to his patrol car, grabbed his fire extinguisher, went into the residence and saw that there was a female inside the residence trying to put out the fire, to no avail. Officer Brachear took his fire extinguisher into the residence, extinguished part of the fire, but and I'll let him tell you even more. The fact is how smoke filled and everything else it was. I can't say enough about Officer Brachear, Rob Brachear. He's selfless. He's new to our department. He's a older gentleman, but with very little experience through the law enforcement. He's only 7 months on our department, but he's experienced. He's he did 22 years with the Army as a sergeant major, so he's well demeanored. He knows what he's doing. You ask him to do something, he gets the job done. There's no questions asked. So I can't say enough about, like I said, the selfless act that Rob did on that specific day.
Do you want to bring him on now, or do you want to bring him on later?
Hey, if I can get out in front of the camera, I'll bring him on right now. Thanks, Dave. For the panel, I appreciate everybody, and Dave, especially you, I guess, for heading this up. We really appreciate you guys, what you do for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Hey, officer.
All right, I hope nobody's offended that an old guy showed up instead of.
You don't look that old. I kind of like your hairline.
So. Yeah, you wear it well. You wear it well.
There's only so many perfect foreheads out there, and we get to show them off. So.
You look good in that chair too, there, Officer Brachear. Chief's chair. It looks good on you.
Don't let Chief know that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, all you gotta do is lock the door. Don't let him back in.
That's right.
He might actually like that. He might take a long lunch the rest of the day.
All right, so let's start off. You had a fire. Well, here, I just want to go through this real quick. You spent 27 years in the Army.
22 years in the Army, active duty. I finished high school, went right into the Army, and got out. So retired in 2019. My wife is from the Farmersville area. That's where we went to high school together. So when I retired, she said, I'd like to move back home. I said, well, I think that's probably the least we can do. So I was happy to move back to the community that I grew up in.
And then you got in the law.
Thanks for your service.
Chief Foley was happy with that. What made you decide to transition? Thank you for your service, by the way, 22 years. What made you decide to transition into a police officer from being a sergeant within the Army?
Well, there was a couple things there. So one, as a sergeant major in the Army, you're kind of in this environment here, right? You're doing all desk work, and it's not that I didn't enjoy that stuff. I had a lot of great soldiers and a lot of great experiences, but I was ready. I still felt like I had a lot left in me. So I'm sorry to say, when I first retired, I applied to police departments and got declined. So because of the age waiver and everything like that. But I was lucky enough to be able to come over to Chatham, and they brought me on and let me take their power test and everything, and I passed. So at that point, after I retired, I was contracting during that time frame from 2019 to the time I started with law enforcement. So contracting work, especially overseas, is good. So I spent time in Djibouti, Somalia, Niger, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Saudi Arabia, and just the list goes on. And I enjoyed that type of work. But there is a point to where I felt like I wasn't making that transition out of that military mindset into something else. And my brothers were both police officers. I know you give me a hard time and say, hey, why don't you get a real job and start, become a cop. So I was lucky to have a chance to serve with the department and come on. And going to the academy at 43 was an interesting event.
And I'll say that Chatham was lucky to get you as well. And so certainly, I mean, you were in the right place at the right time, and a lot of these things, the way these things happen. So they were lucky to get you too, and giving you that chance. And you could see how it all came together for sure in this specific incident, no doubt.
Let's talk about this fire. Let's talk about this fire. What type of fire training did you get being a sergeant major in the Army with fire extinguisher action to be able to commandeer the house fire?
Well, there's two parts there, and Chief just reminded me. I typically don't let it be known in this forum because it causes a lot of problems. But when I retired, right after COVID, I became a volunteer firefighter. So, You know what?
I was 20 years
So
ago.
I either get, yep. It's either at the fire station I get bothered about being a cop, or actually day before yesterday I showed up in my fire uniform here and chief about kicked me out. So as far as fire training goes, I was lucky in this, and I think that's one of the things that I saw people talk about, like, well, you know, you get into a situation like this as a police officer, you're not equipped and designed to go into a structure fire. And I would just caveat with that with the training that I received over at the Illinois Fire Service Institute. I can, at an intermediate or beginner level, I can read smoke. So it wasn't like me just plowing in. It wasn't an action to where I'm just going to bust into a house, because what that can do is actually cause a lot of problems for firefighters as you introduce that new air into an area. So the training, I was in the basic operations firefighter class. I had just finished. And so when I saw the fire, I just happened to be doing traffic that day. So I thank God that I was just in the area at the time, because I wasn't even a block away when it happened. I saw it come across on the screen that there was a structure fire over at one of the local parks. So I went over there and I saw it, and I saw as soon as I pulled up and I turned around the corner, I could see the smoke coming out. I parked my squad car, and then that's when I saw the child running across. Now, the child didn't have any clothes on, so you could tell that he was probably just inside. It was a about 3-year-old child. So he was in his diaper, no shoes on, and he was running across the parking lot. And I don't know how it was for you guys up there, but down here on that day, it was freezing. We were about 20 and had a really pronounced wind in the area. So I grabbed the kid and I saw someone chasing after him. So I found out later what had happened was the mom had taken the child to the neighbor's house, but the kid didn't want to go there, so he ran back out. Took him back over, and that's when I asked the neighbor, I said, is anybody still in the trailer? Yeah, I think so. So at this point, the smoke's turning a little bit darker, and I get into the front door, and there's already a fire in the front yard. So somebody's been taking stuff and throwing it out of the house. There's a big fire with plastic stuff there. So I see that, open the door, get inside. The smoke is starting to layer, and I look underneath, and all I can see is just 2 legs going back and across. From what I can see is the bathroom and the bedroom where the fire is. So the homeowner is taking just glasses of water, and she's trying to like put out she's doing the best she can, but I mean, it's just too smoky. Grab my fire extinguisher. I try to get her out, and she just straight up says no. So I go back, grab my fire extinguisher, come back in, run to the back, and that's when I put out the fire. I get it down low enough to where I can convince her, and I kind of use my body to block her. And like I said, she was doing the best she can, but this is December 18th. I mean, her mind is in another place as far as Christmas coming up, and it's in her child's bedroom. So I try to block her as best I can, get her out of the house, and then finish putting out the last bit of the fire that was coming out of the window from the exterior there. And like I said, I was just glad to be there at the time, because by the time I got her out, her face is covered with soot. I don't know how much longer she could have realistically stayed in there and continued to do that, because just with the time I was in there, it was pretty thick.
Were you able to save the house, or is the house totally destroyed?
Nope, it was not. So like I said, I was extremely lucky and blessed to be where I was at the time. So by the time fire got there, they put out the last of it, but we were able to put out a majority of it in that back bedroom. And the structure is still standing. It had some repairs on the outside. They replaced the windows, some of the siding and stuff like that. So everything turned out as best it could for that time frame.
So not only did you save her life, you saved her house. So that's huge.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think there could have been a better place for me to be stationed at, unless I'd been doing traffic inside of her living room there.
Well, I can't think of a better officer to start out the officer spotlight than Officer Brachear here. Thank you for your time, buddy, and thank you for your service again. And thank you for saving that lady's house and taking care of her son, her 3-year-old, and saving her life as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Well done.
He set a pretty high bar here for this officer spotlight. That he hit the first officer spotlight. It's going to be a hard bar to clear.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I don't. It's one of the things about police work that I came into that I don't think that is getting a lot of attention. And I'm glad you guys are doing this podcast, because it wasn't even a week ago to where we had officers respond and begin CPR before paramedics get there. And these like you were saying earlier, sir, the micro contacts throughout the day of the 1.2 million police interactions. I mean, there are life-saving events occurring multiple times per day that no one hears about. And like you were saying, the officers like, that's just part of the job. And I think it reflects on policing as a whole, that there are so many guys going out there and gals just going out there doing the work that needs to be done and then moving out, and you never hear about it. And that's unfortunate. But in the same vein, I think it lends itself to the profession to say, like, this is what you do, and you don't need a lot of recognition for it, but it's good to see that you guys are doing that.
Hey, David, I think if we need a backup panelist at some point, I think Officer Brachear has just distinguished himself pretty impressively on our podcast. Well done, Officer Brachear, on all levels. Really, truly happy you got the opportunity to do this job. Chatham's lucky to have you, and so were we, for all the service you did. Again, and we'll talk about this, and maybe we'll have you back on when we do, but this whole life of service thing, I mean, you've committed a life of service to the country, now to the citizens of Chatham, and I think that just represents the best in our American people, and in you, that your whole life has been dedicated to serving others in one way or another, man. And so really, really grateful to you for the work you do and have done throughout your history and career. So thank you, and really well done on this too. I'll share with you quickly. I went into a fire when I was a young officer. I put it out. It was a really expensive big home. I thought I was doing a great job. My fire chief came and just destroyed me. Was very unhappy with me, just to the point of what you said. I stood there, proud with this fire extinguisher kind of oozing out. And he's like, "Are you crazy? You know what you could have done to us?" And I learned, and I didn't have the experience and training you did. I was just lucky, but I, realized after that, I could have made it a lot worse. But I think we're all just trying to put our best foot forward. But with you and your experience, boy, you really were able to bring this to a successful conclusion. So thank you. And thank you for being on today and really, again, setting the bar. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great job, Officer Brachear. Let me ask you, so did you go to the State Police Academy?
Yeah. No, sir, I was a Macon County guy.
Oh, okay.
So I know there's some other troopers in here. It's really a great facility. And the team down there does a great job. So
Hey, believe me, I sent my guys there. I was just going to say that would have been something else, to go through the ISB Academy at that age. I mean, they still do it the old way. So that's why I was curious. So, okay. Yeah, but amazing job by you. All the credit to you for just, wanting to continue to serve. I mean, a lot of people, they serve in the military, and to extend that out, like Lou said, is extremely admirable. That you want to continue to serve even at your age, and still be active on the street. Most of the people around your age hopefully have found themselves a cush job by now, but unfortunately, you're not in that position. But you're still willing to to run into danger, and life-saving event, I can imagine this lady, like you said, around Christmas, you're trying to save Christmas presents, anything you can, photo albums, all kinds of types of things that you think everyone would know, hey, that's not important, your life is more important. But sometimes that's, these photo albums memorialize your whole life. I mean, there's just so many things that you would want to try to save. And that was amazing that you were able to get in there and get her out of there, despite all that was going on. So kudos to you. I appreciate you.
I'm going to take this well, stay there, officer. I'm going to take this, if you could, I'm going to take this in a little different direction, Lou, because I'm the host of the show. By the way, the show's sponsored by me, Team Hochberg. You're looking to purchase a new home, refinance your existing home, give me a call, 855-56-DAVID. Go to 56david.com, and we do loans in Southern Illinois as well. So I'm going to throw it over to Mimi. We have a 43-year-old retired master sergeant who decides to get into law enforcement. When you were with the state police, did you have a lot of these type of candidates come through? And I'm going to go around the horn to see what the requirements are down in O'Fallon, up in DeKalb, but out in Highland Park. if officers, 43-year-old, if there's any age requirements or any age stipulations or any type of physical, barriers for men and women getting out of the military that want to continue their service, like Officer Brachear here. So I'll throw it over to you, Mimi.
So yeah, that's a great question. But first, if I can just say something about Officer Brachear before I answer that question. Thank you for your service in the military. And also I feel like you were meant to be in that situation. You were meant to be on this department. You would have fooled us all by coming on and telling us you were on for 30 years, because your demeanor and the way that you talk and how confident you are, really, 7 months. I mean, I would have expected something differently, but great job by you. And I just want to let you know that all of us and chiefs around the country, the act that you did makes us all proud. So,
thank you,
your bravery and your courage says a whole lot, and you should be proud of that. The acts of kindness that you talked about, and just the work that officers do on a daily basis. Well, there's millions of stories we will never hear about, because we all know, a lot of our officers are humble and they do these things every single day. So it's great to recognize someone like you that goes, puts their life on the line and goes and saves lives. So great job by you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So when I was in the academy back in 1997, we had a guy who was 50 years old starting the academy. He retired as a gym teacher, and now he didn't do a long. He did like maybe 6 or 7 years on the job, but he came and he was pretty fit. He was able to run with all of us and do the push-ups and do the P-fit. But really, I don't even look at it so much as age, because there's a lot of great older officers that get on these jobs. I mean, look at Officer Brachear. Like that's a great example. And another one. There's several state troopers that get on late in life, and they're doing very, very well today on this job. So I think it's not the age. It's what you can do. It's your communication. It's your humility. It's empathy. There's a whole lot of other things that we look at and that come out of these officers, when they join the academy and when they continue their job and profession as a police officer. So Officer Brachear is a living example. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Mimi. Let's throw it down to Chief Brigham. What type of requirements, if a retired armed forces veteran comes to you and wants to get involved in your force, are there any restrictions?
We have pretty much a age limit of 35 years old, but for every year of active duty military, that extends that another year. So you can be up to 45 years old with 10 years of active duty military. And it's been a godsend for us, because we're right next to Scott Air Force Base, and our officer of the year last year is 50-year-old who's been on less than 5 years, and he came 20 plus years in the Army. Fantastic all around person. We just hired somebody last year who had 25 years in the Army, and he's 46 years old, or he's 44 years old now. So, so we've been very fortunate to intermix those young officers at 21 years old with those new rookies they're rookies to us, but they're 40-something years old and got that life experience that is just huge for us. And we had somebody who was 22 years old rooming in the academy with somebody who'd been in the military longer than he'd been alive. And to get those different experiences and to meld them together is fantastic for us. So, yeah.
I'm going to throw it over to Chief Bergs. I know you've got a funeral to go to, so I want to make sure we get your involvement in here. What do you guys do up in DeKalb if a retired retired military wants to get involved in your force?
Yeah, so our age limit is 35 in DeKalb, but there are military points that you receive, during the interview process. So, which is pretty good. At the end of the day, I started the police academy in 1989, and I was very young, 21 years old, 21, 22 in the academy. And the majority of my class were in their 30s. So like Chief Bruggeman said, the life experience. I learned a lot from those guys just from, they all had children. They had already started their lives. I mean, I'm a 21, 22-year-old. I mean, back then you had to stand in line to use the payphone because there were no cell phones, of course. And I remember getting in line thinking like, well, who am I going to call? I mean, I don't really have anybody to call. I mean, these guys are in line waiting to talk to their kids, their wives. I'm like, man, I would always defer my time because I'm like, dude, I ain't got nobody to call here, So, they appreciate it because they need to talk to their children. But I learned a lot from them just through the life experiences that they had already started to kind of navigate through. So that was pretty important for me. But one of the things I do want to say, especially since, we do have Officer Brachear here, but I had the same conversation probably about a couple of weeks ago about praising and commending our officers for doing a job well done. If people believe, and this is for the community as well, you'll hear people say all the time, well, you get paid to do this, and and this is your job, and all that being, we all understood that when we took the oath. All right, we took the oath, we understand that. But if you think that the paycheck is going to make them whole by itself, you're very misguided there. The paycheck alone doesn't make them whole. You have to commend them. They have to be praised for doing a job well done, even though they do not ask for it. I mean, we've talked about that. We've all been young officers in the same position. We didn't ask for it. But I will tell you, when I did get praised, when I did get a pat on the back, it made me happy. It did. It really did. It was one of the most, you walk away, you act like you're not happy, but you go on, you like, you got that, yeah, and I'm glad they acknowledge me, so you do feel that, Dave, even though they might not ask for it up front, but I talked to all of them after the fact, and they would say, thanks, Chief. I really appreciate you doing that for me. Short, quick story. I wrote Mimi her first positive counseling form when she came on the job. So I was her sergeant, and she was doing an amazing job, Dave. She was on midnights with a bunch of guys. She was the only female, and she was kicking their tail activity-wise. And I remember writing her first positive counseling form, which is on the low level of acknowledgement, but still that piece of paper, especially when it's your first one, goes a long way. So we have to continue to do that as chiefs. I know we all do it on this call, and I'm sure every chief throughout the state of Illinois, throughout the country, do some similar praise or commendation process in their agency. So
before I throw it over, thanks, Chief Bird, but before I throw it over to Lou, I want to bring it back to Officer Brachear in terms of that recognition. On Monday I was down Western and Ashland. I had a meeting with a realtor right by Lane Tech High School. There's a Starbucks there. And as I pull in, I'm talking on the phone. There's two officers, the CPD walk in before me. So they're waiting. And I told the lady behind the counter, I'm like, their money's no good. I'm going to take care of them. They're like, oh, you don't need to do it. And then I saw that they were detectives, and we started talking about the Vestathon. And I'm like, I dropped Snelling. I'll call the superintendent Snelling on you. I just had him on my show, and I had Antoinette on and all that stuff. The smile on their face. And I want to ask you, Officer, Brachear, the public recognition from the force, right? From your chief, from Chief Foley, and I'm sure the city council, said nice things for your heroic act as well. They should. But the recognition, the cup of coffee that the local residents buy for you, or the sandwich that they buy for you, how much does that mean to you and the other men and women on the force?
Yeah, I'd say from the department side, it's something I'm used to from the military, right? Because the Department of the Army and Department of Defense, they have awards, and you get it from your command team, and they say, hey, good job. The difference here for me, and it's exactly what you brought up, is that the community involvement, right? So the awards I received when I was in the military the actions occurred elsewhere. Nobody knows about them. The big difference here, and it's something that I appreciate, and it's been an interesting kind of change, and I'll talk about it from 2 points. One, it's been awesome to show up at a it's obviously a traffic crash, not an awesome thing, but it is something when people be like, hey, I know you. You're the guy on Facebook. I was like, oh yeah, you're the fire guy. Yeah, that's me. So it's awesome to get that recognition from the community and that they are looking at our page and seeing the work we're doing. The second thing is that it's also helped me in different situations that are maybe a bit more confrontational. So one, because of my age, so people think I've been a police officer longer, but the second part is when they know you in that forum, it almost, you break the first top of that barrier that you have to have with a difficult confrontation, because somebody could say, oh, okay, I know him. That's the guy that was on fire that was down over here. Yeah, that's me. So it helps you in that aspect too. So one, it's great to get the recognition from the citizens, but it also helps a lot too in performance of my duties. And then the constant harassment here at the police department about like, oh, here comes the guy again. What's he up to today? That's okay, I guess.
All right. Well, thank you for commenting on that. Lou, up in Highland Park, what's your requirement? I know we're going in a little different direction here, but since Officer Brachear is the spotlight here, let's talk about what are the age requirements or physicality requirements up in Highland Park, if you have any.
Yeah, I'll just say with those, pretty much the same as around the horn, 35, but we do have some exceptions if you're older. I will also say, interestingly, you find people like Officer Brachear, and we have ours too, people who just want to serve. So we've got military folks that have come on board after the military. We've got now still in Highland Park, and I'm sure most departments have some folks that are still serving. I've got probably about 5 or 6 that are still serving in the reserves or the National Guard. So they're still serving. And then interestingly, as I'm just listening, about talking about older officers and people coming on board, we talk about, and we have talked about here, the lateral program where you can bring on officers from other departments. And we're seeing a lot of, I don't say older because I don't want to be hurtful. I say tenured, more tenured officers coming on. We've got one actually just retired from one department at 55 and came on with us. And I can't keep up with the guy. He is phenomenal. I see him, he's working midnights because that's where he's going as a junior officer in Highland Park. And he's up and down the stairs. He's leading in traffic citations and stops. And so those people are out there and they want to continue to give until, they can't anymore. And I mean, that's just such a credit to who they are. And we're lucky to have them in our military and certainly in our police forces. I will say to Officer Brachear, obviously you're going to catch heat from your guys and girls, but that's because they love you and you know that. If you didn't catch heat, then you wouldn't be part of the team. And I know you know that from the military. We're unusual a bunch. And for people listening, we talk about the fire and police distinction, and we say it in jest. There's definitely a love and camaraderie there, and also just a little bit of an edge, between whose gig is better. We tease each other all the time about which line you got into when you were starting, and if you got into the wrong line. I know the fire folks seem to think that they've got it made, and you know what? For a group of men and women that can, sit in their chairs most of the day and watch TV, so no, but we do have that camaraderie and we do chide each other. I have profound respect for our firefighters, but I know they feel the same for us. But, to Officer Brachear's point, you're going to catch a lot of grief no matter what you do, but it's always well-intentioned and it comes from a good place. But certainly my last point, so that I don't go on and on, you do see again, unfortunately, on the news and just in general, and when people come to complain about maybe the service wasn't what they expected, that wears on you as an officer when you're seeing the news or when you're hearing those things. And so the positive contacts like Chief Byrd did for his young officer, Mimi McGreal, the recognition at City Council or the recognition from the community, those things mean so much. It's not that people are looking for them, as we've all talked about, but it chips away at least a little bit at some of the negative parts of this job, and so that's why it is important for our residents to if they do feel it, to say it, thank you, or, appreciate what you're doing, because the officers aren't looking for it. I'll tell you, they're not. And it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable, but it's so needed that they have to chip away at kind of all the other stuff that goes on, for sure.
All right, Chief Byrd had a jump to a previous engagement. So let's just go around the horn here, right? We talked about how heroic and brave and what a great a great thing that Officer Brachear did, and duly noted. When you were in the, Colonel of the ISP, Mimi, what, just throw out one episode of something brave that a trooper did that nobody heard of but saved a life like Officer Brachear did. Not putting you on the spot or anything, but
I know. We've had officers talk, people off the ledge, from committing suicide that never made the news, and just those types of things that and then how do you acknowledge that? So obviously, we do a lot. We do awards, we do recognitions, and we also make that call, because I think that's important too, is that you get those calls from your peers, from your bosses, to say, hey, great job. And and it could be little things, little things besides, something like Officer Brachear did, because when they do every single day, they're impacting somebody's life, and, they show up on their worst day and they're making it better. And so those are just, little things that, I actually just thought of one. So that was a good thing. Really quick. There was a trooper who had like a motorist assist, and somebody really needed to get somewhere, but their car broke down, and it was her worst day. This trooper bought her a bus ticket with his own money to get her back, 3 hours away. And, it was such a great act of kindness. And here's the thing, we didn't know about it until she wrote a letter. So she got home, and I think her mother wrote the letter, like helped her write the letter. And it was one of those things where you're like, wow, what a great thing that this trooper did just to help, someone out on their worst day. So, I do think, it's our job to recognize our officers and to continue to just, say great job and what have you. So.
Thank you, Chief Brigham. What did one of your officers do that didn't get the proper recognition, or I shouldn't say proper recognition, that the public might not have known about?
Yeah, it's interesting, because what doesn't get a lot of recognition is something that we started doing about, and departments all over the country do it about over the last 10 years, is Narcan. Just about every department carries Narcan. And initially, and it's kind of a sad thing, but it's like, well, what we're doing is we're saving people that have put themselves in situations.
What is Narcan, real quick?
So Narcan is something that reduces the effects of an opioid overdose. So when somebody overdoses on heroin or any other kind of opioid, we can give them Narcan, which is basically something that a little nose spray that you spray into their nose. And then that reverses that and basically brings them back to life. It takes somebody who is nearly dead and brings them back to life. And all over the country, and in our department, we're doing it once, twice a month with people. And so it doesn't get a lot of recognition because generally the people that are overdosing may be addicts and stuff like that. And it's not a very popular thing to recognize. But the one thing that you have to recognize is that every single one of those people that they're saving has a brother, a mother, a father, a sister, kids. And the impact that you have on those families' lives is just immeasurable. And, it's Narcan, it's no big deal. But if you realize that, just by doing that, by being that officer on scene and giving that Narcan to someone and giving that person a second chance, and sometimes we're giving them second chances and third chances and fourth chances, but giving them that opportunity gives another day with that family. And I think that's something that we don't recognize as much, because the heroism, swimming into a lake to save somebody who's drowning, or pulling somebody out of a car, or putting a tourniquet on. Those are great things. It's amazing. But the small things that we do have generally just as big of an impact on those family members, and they just don't often get recognized enough. So,
thanks. That's great, Lou.
Yeah, I'm going to say something I don't normally say or often say, but Kirk, that was great. So that was actually very insightful. So We've done a couple Narcan saves in the last couple of weeks, and you watch the body cam video and you just watch these people starting to check out. I mean, they're going, and these officers are saving them, literally to Kirk's point, saving their lives. And that's going on daily all across the country, and you just don't hear about it. So it's just in general for me in Highland Park, I certainly would be remiss, when we talk about bravery, we talk about incredible work. I mean, July 4th, 2022 for Highland Park, our darkest day with our mass shooting at the parade. I saw officers just really incredible work, really, truly, truly incredible work. Did not think about themselves for a second and really just responded and did everything they should do and more. So, I'll be forever impressed and grateful for the work that these men and women did in Highland Park. And they definitely saved lives, mitigated, and brought that to a resolution that, needed to happen with the arrest. So, but again, it's the little things that go on, and there's just tons of those. You've got officers that, again, to Mimi's point, an officer just a couple of weeks ago saw some kids hanging out a window on our expressway going through town, pulled the woman over, wrote her the ticket for having them under restraint, but then took her to Target and bought 2 car seats out of his own money for her. So while he had to cite her and he felt, obviously she needs to kind of learn to do something to keep her kids safe, he also felt compelled to help her. And we've got officers that buy bus tickets and coffee and shoes. And I mean, the list goes on. And those things are never known to the public, never known. And those little acts of kindness are going on daily throughout our state, throughout the country, throughout our communities. And the officers are not doing it for accolade. They're not saying, hey, look at what I did. I mean, 99% of the time, we only know about it because the people call us to tell us, right? And that's it, or we see it on the body cam. They're not advocating for themselves. So we're fortunate that these men and women are out there serving us. Yes, we have to arrest people. Yes, we have to cite people. Yes, sometimes we do get it wrong. We do. We always try to get it right. We don't always get it right, and we work to make it right. I mean, that's really what we do in law enforcement. But we do get so much right. And we all could go around this forum for hours and hours about the things that we're aware of. And so I just think our public needs to know that, just like I feel at least that, the vast majority of people are really good people. And then we have some people, unfortunately, that do things they shouldn't and make bad choices. I think the same should be true for law enforcement officers. The vast majority are out there doing great work, good people. And then unfortunately, some do things that bring discredit on us. But
all right, not to put any, I'm sorry, Luke.
No, I was going to say, and I don't know if you're going there or not, but I was going to ask Officer Brachear, and if you're going there, go ahead, or go your route first. But just, to include him in this conversation, if he's got anybody maybe from the military and his service that stands out to him that provided some kind of unbelievable service or something outside the norm.
It didn't get recognized. Yeah.
Yeah. Over your 20 plus years, if you got any stories about somebody over 20 years that you saw that just stuck with you about something that one of your military brothers or sisters did.
Oh, I think I'm in the same boat as previously. There were tons of events from courage under fire to treating casualties, but I think as I go back and kind of reflect on it, I think it comes back to kind of what I was talking about earlier about those tiny moments in time that were different than anything else. So the first thing I thought of when you said that was, think about a fight or a gunfight or something like that. But that's not really what resonated with me. What resonates with me was it was 2004 or 5 in Afghanistan, and we were out at a Ford location, and a local Afghan kid, had almost his whole face blown off from munition that was left over from when the Russians were there in the 80s, because those things are buried all in the landscape and everything. And in addition, he had tuberculosis. So, I mean, the child was just in terrible shape. And, it's one of those things where you watch the team medic, work on him, stabilize him, and then we transported him to Kabul, if I remember correctly. But it wasn't what you think of for me when I talk about the incident of the war fighting function of what you have to do in combat. It was that tiny moment in time where someone did something that was so kind that I think that's what resonated more with me than anything else was was taking care of someone, even though the environment you're in is not focused on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. Those are the little things that you've got a lived experience that we don't have and that most people don't have. And for them to have a little peek into, even back in 2004, that resonated with you and is in your, still in your consciousness, all that stuff that we talk about on this show, that for police and military, we see things we're never going to unsee. But, for you to draw upon that pretty quickly, it obviously resonated with you, and it was impressive to see those folks do their everything to help another human being, regardless of any of the situation. They just went to help somebody, and that gives you some faith in people and hope, So thank you for sharing that.
I want to end on a lighter note. That was pretty heavy. I mean, that's a great story, but man, I want to end it on that. By the way, instead of tenured, Lou, try experienced, because that's what I use with older homeowners.
Okay.
Call them experienced homeowners. So
I like that.
You're welcome. And as a 57-year-old, Chief Kennedy here turned me down because I told him because he had a apply now sign up when I went to drop off some water, and he's like, hey, I want to apply. He's like, for what? I'm like, I saw the sign. He's like, yeah, no shot. Thanks for the waters. Keep walking. So
yeah, Dave, it wasn't about the age. Trust me, I talked to him. That's not why. So just so you know, that was just
mental demeanor. I went to pass the Rorschach test.
Yeah, the psych test. Yeah.
I could probably see that. I want to end on a light note here, Officer Brachear. You're a little more experienced than your your fellow troopers. Your fellow officers. You went through the academy with a lot younger officers. What one funny story of having you, the senior, walk in there, more experienced officer with all the youngins? Did they teach you how to do any TikTok dances, or is there one funny story you could share with us?
I don't know how funny it is, but it's embarrassing for me.
Oh, so then it's funny. Well, then
it'll be really funny.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That is funny.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Some of the social media stuff, even when I do interviews now with victims or anybody coming in, I'm always like, what are you talking about? And there's so many social media platforms, and there's so many nuances to them that they just come in and they tell you something and you feel so old. And then I have to go home. Now, I am lucky, full disclosure here, my daughter is training to be a dispatcher at our department. So when I get into these situations where I have no idea what someone's talking about, because the slang now is also totally different. So when I get into those situations, I don't say a word to the person. I just scribble it down, and then I phone a friend, and she lets me know what's going on in the street. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, it's not very funny, and I don't even know if I could TikTok dance. I've seen some of them, and I think I'd throw out a hip or something.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you joining us and being the first officer in the officer spotlight. You did a great job. You set the bar high for other officers, and we appreciate your time, your service, and spending the this podcast with us and showing all the other officers that come on in the future what they have to do and what's expected of them on future podcasts. So thanks for doing that for us, buddy.
Thanks, Officer Brachear.
Ma'am, gentlemen, thank you. I appreciate it.
And
we want to throw Chief Foley on there so we can wrap this up, and then we'll call this a day. And so, Chief Foley, you got lucky there. You got unbelievable officer, 20 plus years, Sergeant Major. Are you like scouring the retired veterans lists in your county to try to get more officers?
That's a great question. I consider it a gift that Rob applied for our department. Like I said before, he's driven. I don't need to give any direction. You give him a detail or give him something to do. There's really no questions asked. He knows what it needs to get the job done, so he gets the job done.
All right, and I see that yellow brick. You did the FBI Academy training, so I know a bunch of officers that went through that. So maybe on a future podcast, we could talk about the FBI training that a lot of you chiefs have gone through, and a lot of the officers that I know and commanders that I know have gone through, to talk a little deeper about that yellow brick behind Chief Foley means that he passed. He went through and passed the FBI Academy's training that has law enforcement leaders throughout the United States come in for. Was it 16-week training, Chief? That
I believe it's 12.
12. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. It's been a while since I've been there. I can't say enough. Probably the biggest thing to take away is the networking.
Yeah.
There's not a time or a day that goes by that if I have a question about something, I've got someone I can always reach out to. But that's also true with law enforcement in general. If I need something, I no problem calling out to Kirk or calling out to Lou. Anybody. We're out there to help people. We're out there to take care of each other, and we're caretakers. We're all selfless. That's why we're in the job. We're no different than teachers or to help. We're always there to help. There's not an officer out there today that goes out there and wants to do something malicious. We're in a profession to help individuals, to help people at their darkest moments.
Got it. You want to end it, Lou, with something? You want to wrap this up?
Yeah, no, I appreciate Chief Foley. Again, to his point, I saw the story about his, Officer Brachear, and we've been talking about getting officers through here to highlight the work they're doing, and it resonated with me, his story. And I reached out to Chief Foley, and he was like, "Yeah, absolutely, no problem. We definitely want to spread the word." And so I appreciate your willingness to jump on, Chief, and have your officer come on. I think it's important for us and what we're doing to try to get the word out across the state. So really grateful for that. And I think he did a phenomenal job. He did a great job. So yeah. So just grateful, and a great episode just to hear all the good things that are going on out there.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Behind the Badge Illinois. We'll come back to another episode next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, like I'm sponsoring the show, give me a call, 855-568. We're always looking for new sponsors to try to spread the word of all the great things that the officers in Illinois are doing. Thanks, Mimi. Thanks, Kirk. Thanks, Lou. Thanks, Chief Bird. And thank you, Chief Foley. Have a great day, everybody.